Well, thank you, Michael Staertow, for making the time to talk with me today. First off, I trying to remember, where are you located?
I am in upstate New York in Rochester.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And because you've lived up there for a long time, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much been here my whole life, back and forth from, different locations, but mostly here. Yeah. Thanks for having me, by the way. It's good to see you.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's been a while. So,
Yeah.
I'm curious with, this downtime that musicians are experiencing, like how are you musically making the best of it?
I'm taking advantage of this downtime and like locking myself in my studio and finishing stuff that I've been working on forever. That's been, the taking forever. Now I really have no excuse because I'm sequestered and I'm forced to focus. So it's like making the best out of a bad situation. As you know, the silver lining, what do they say, the cloud silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, every cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah, I'm trying to make that my silver lining.
Okay, so what are you doing with your studio?
I've been working on this instrumental. I think the last time we talked, and every time I get two steps forward, I take a step or two back, three steps back with just my schedule and people that I'm collaborating with their schedules. And now everybody's kind of down, so we're all kind of saying to each other, you know, let's uh, let's Dropbox some files back and forth. We can't get together, so thank God for technology, and we're able to swap files and work on stuff, and it's working out really good. You know.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and I mean, even before this craziness, I've talked to more musicians that are doing these kind of virtual collaborations, just because when things are full bore, especially in like the summer concert season, usually people are all over the map, and
Yeah.
they'll do these virtual collaborations where they'll share files and things of that nature, and um, what's the key to getting a good sound, for someone you're doing a project for remotely?
I just think if we're all on the same page as far as the technical aspects of our tracks or our files that we're sending back and forth, and we can all integrate together. Sending things back and forth. It's actually really convenient instead of sitting there, you know, watching somebody record something and go, no, that's not it. That's not it, making them nervous. You could do it in the comfort of your own home, in your own studio, from a hotel room. I mean, when I was touring heavily, I would take my laptop with me, and it wasn't uncommon with all the free time that you have traveling to be able to sit down and get ideas and take them off your iPhone. I used to record a lot of raw ideas on my iPhone, and then listen back to them and say, "Wow, that's a really good idea." And then open up my digital workstation and just open it up and lay some tracks down, and now it's there. And now I'm able to like take that file, put it in a Dropbox folder, and send it off to a drummer and say, "Hey, can you put some real drums to this? Can you, to a bass
Hmm.
player, can you play some real bass? And it's really convenient. It really works good.
Yeah, no, and I would imagine it opens up possibilities for you to work with people that it would have been hard to work with just because of scheduling and distance, etc.
Yes. Well, it just totally transcends geographic constraints. I mean, I can send something to somebody in LA, being in New York, and they can do it at their leisure. When they're ready, they send it back to me, and generally, it all integrates pretty well. I think it's technology's a wonderful thing.
Now you talked about how you've been working on this instrumental album. I've been surprised the number of times I've talked to musicians who work on instrumental songs or albums, and how often, even with instrumentals, there's some form of lyric that kind of runs through their mind, even when they're playing an instrumental. Like they all like maybe not the actual words, but they're kind of hearing something, some sort of ghost lyric, if you will. Does that happen when you're working on instrumentals?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, you're hearing a melody, a hook in your mind, and sometimes it translates to a melody, but you're trying to, like with my solo stuff, I'm trying to evoke a lyrical essence with my guitar. I think we talked about that before, to where I'm emulating the human voice and trying to get that across. So, you know, I would imagine that I could see that, lending, credence to what you're trying to do as a songwriter. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, as we've talked about, you've done a lot of work with Lou Gramm, who's known for his songwriting and his vocals. And with you being so melodic, I'm curious, with your solo work with this instrumental, how has Lou's singing influenced your guitar playing?
In my own material.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I mean, there has to be some kind of influence. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I mean, just being around somebody who's so prolific and has had so many hits and so many great melodies. I mean, everything, all his all the foreigner or solo songs that he's done in the past. I mean, have been such memorable melodies and memorable hooks. And I would say that just being around that probably lends to having to try to be catchy with melodies and what have you. So yeah, I mean,
Mm.
I'm sure through osmosis, it's ingrained somewhere there, deep down. I don't. It's kind of it took me off guard with the question because I don't normally think about anybody in particular, but it has to from just from playing those songs. I mean, just having those ingrained, it's like you're exposed to that, so there's got to be some kind of influence. But I have to think about that one a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, no problem. It just, because,
Yeah.
like, for instance, you've talked about the influence Neil Sean of Journey has been on
Absolutely.
your playing, and that's, a more natural kind of direct one-to-one correlation. Guitar player influences guitar player.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
again, as we've talked about, your playing is very melodic, your playing is very lyrical, and then, the hours you've spent working with, one of the better known vocalists of our time, that's just what made me, curious about that. But it's an odd, complex thought. So if there's no easy answer, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some kind of an influence subliminally that gets ingrained at some point. I mean, everyone sang, his melodies and sang his lyrics. I mean, you can think about it right now. I want to know what love is. It's so ingrained. So there's got to be some kind of influence, somewhere,
Yeah.
in
And
the
then,
writings.
mhm. And then you transitioned from playing with Lou to doing a lot of work with Slaughter recently. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wondering what was the most challenging part of that transition?
Well, first of all, I was asked to temporarily fill in for their band. I was never a member of the band, but I did several shows with Mark Slaughter and Blas, the original drummer, and it was a real treat to be able to go from one artist who had multi-platinum selling records to right to it directly to another one who has had a fair amount of success as well. I think the biggest challenge was trying to step into another guitar player's shoes, and like we talked before with the Foreigner and Mick Jones material, is to try to emulate and try to recreate those parts, but going from one style being Mick Jones to a Tim Kelly was they're very different players. Fortunately, I think Tim Kelly had a lot of the same influences as I did with Neil
Mm.
Sean and Steve Lukather, and I'm sure they were fans of Foreigner as well. Um, Trying to step into, switch gears and step into that direction in his shoes and really try to pay respect. And I think that's what it's almost like it's been one of it seems to be a calling for me to step into these. I'm not saying that I mean I was entitled to it, but I've been very fortunate and very lucky to step into some of these people's catalogs and their shoes and trying to replicate their parts. And you know, as a listener, I want to hear it done right. I don't want it. I don't think anybody wants to hear my version of it. They want to hear what was recorded, and that's what I tried to do with them too. And I think it went really well. I mean, I had a really great time with those guys. I mean, made some really really good friends, which I hope that in my opinion, lifelong friends. I mean, Mark's a great guy, Blas. We played with a bass player that's friends with Mark named Jamie Millard, great guy, Nashville guy. I never got to meet Dana Strum, but had several conversations with him, and I hope to do something more with them in the future if needed. But it's a really cool thing to go from one platinum selling artist to another platinum selling artist, and hopefully I can continue the jump skipping into something, parlay it into something another artist of that capacity.
Right, right. And also, I think it speaks to A, your versatility, and B, the importance of versatility in today's music scene. I mean, there's some guys out there that are great guitarists, but they've got a single lane and they can only play in that particular lane or realm.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, I find it fascinating that two diverse artists like Lou Gramm and Slaughter have come to you and said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, you are the guy for us." So I'm wondering what advice you would give to up and coming guitarists about how they can be so versatile.
Well, I think that you should not limit yourself. Like you say, stay in your lane. I think you should have a few different lanes and dabble a little bit in each lane. It's good to be proficient at many things. Obviously, you want to be, very proficient at your craft to be able to jump around. But I think you should listen to different artists and play different styles, and you know, play in a cover band. If you're an up and coming guitarist, musician, play in a cover band that plays multiple multiple, not necessarily multiple genres, but that doesn't hurt either. But I mean, if you play multiple artist music and try to stretch yourself and try to really listen and try to really dig into a player and really try to deliver what you're hearing, because essentially I think that's what the listener wants. It always goes back to the listener. You always want to do what the audience and the audience wants, and to be a first call guy, or a guy who gets called frequently. That's probably a good idea to be diverse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. And speaking of guitarists and influences, you had a post the other day. Well, first of all, I would encourage people to follow you on social media, because you post all these great guitar riffs, and you get to kind of really see up close and personal how you make it all possible. But you had a post about Randy Rhoads, I think it was yesterday, iconic guitarist from Quiet Riot and Ozzy Osbourne, and I'm curious, like with someone like him, what did you learn from him or take away from his playing as a professional guitarist?
Well, I always refer to Randy as being the standard of excellence. I mean, he was the consummate guitar player. He was the consummate student. He was just all around something that really appealed to me. There was a video of him that went around for a while that's still around. It's called the After Hours.
Hmm.
It was a simulcast radio TV show that went on Saturday nights and was filmed here in Rochester, New York. And the Ozzy Osbourne band was in town, and they filmed them playing 5 or 6 songs, and then there was an interview. And I recorded that, not only the simulcast, it was on the radio on a cassette, but on a beta videotape. And I, I used to watch that every day when I got home from school, and I was just so taken by Randy's, his technique and his approach, and everything was precise and deliberate. I mean, he was such a an interesting player, and there was something about it that really, really took me. And I looked at him as being the total package. The way he looked, the way he played the guitar, the way he held the guitar, the notes he played, the chords, everything had a purpose. Everything he composed from from having the educational background and being a teacher, everything was all theoretically, you know, everything was where it was supposed to be. And he was so thorough with that stuff, and it was just so inspiring. So, every year, that post that I posted yesterday was the
Hmm.
anniversary of untimely death. And every year I tried to pay tribute to him on his birthday and on the day of his passing, because I don't I don't think that he should be forgotten. I think Randy is, he's the standard of excellence as far as I'm concerned. He was like at the time it was everything, and I think that's still true today. I mean, I think his legacy lives on. I mean, it was a short body of work, 2 records, and then they had a live record. I think it's called the tribute record, and other than that video that was recorded here in Rochester, there's no lengthy, quality, comprehensive footage of him, and that was done right here, and it's amazing. I mean, I know that the radio station had contests for minimal amount of people to go down there and watch this recording, and I had a couple friends who went, and it was incredible. I mean, I'm so sorry I missed it. And the second album, The Diary of a Madman, yeah, Blizzard of Oz was first. Diary of a Madman, he came through. They were coming through here in town, and I bought a ticket because I missed the first one, and he died several weeks before. I was so bummed. I wanted to see him, but I had friends that went to the first one, and they said, "You got to see this guy, Randy Rhoads. He's like, I mean, everybody was into Eddie Van Halen at the time, which I mean, Eddie's amazing as well. But when Randy came, it was kind of like just a different skew on the same level of innovate. What do they call innovation and I'm losing a word. I'm losing my. Anyways, they're just amazing players that probably will never. I don't know if we'll ever get that level of player again. I hope we do, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But,
Yeah, well,
Randy.
with that innovation, it sounds like everything you're describing is he explored guitar playing and where it could be taken in new avenues, new routes.
Yeah. Well, he was a virtuoso. That's the word I was looking for. Him and Eddie, were virtuosos. I mean, they were just, probably once in a lifetime players. At least in my lifetime. I mean, I hope there's some people that are going to be that innovative and be able to. And there's guys out there now that are blazing the trail, and good for them. And we need that. We need more guitar playing.
Yeah, and then speaking of a lot of these really influential guys, you've been one of the pros that the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp turns to bring in and work with aspiring musicians and you've been there with Matt Starr, drummer Matt Starr is a fantastic drummer. You've been with Ann Wilson of Heart. Paul Stanley, I think. Nancy Wilson, excuse me.
Paul Stanley. Who else? The guys from. The guy Paul Stanley. The guys from REO. The guys from Foreigner. Yeah.
And what's cool for me to see, because you're good about posting pictures from that, and here's my band for the camp and all this kind of stuff, is how much fun you guys seem to be having, and like the professionals seem to be having, and it's like you guys have played some humongous stages in your time, with some of the best accompanying players ever, and now you're with people that would, I guess, be called, amateurs in some respects, but you appear to be having as much fun, as the people who have joined the camp.
Yeah. I mean, some of the people that come to camp are amazing. I mean, some of the people, have bands, they play, in local bands, or they probably, played in college and put it aside for their careers, and now they have an opportunity to go and live out something that they left behind, and you make friends with them. I mean, you bond with them, and they really connect, and I connect with them. I mean, it's such a rewarding experience, Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. You spend 4 days with total strangers. As a counselor, your job is to bring them together, and put a band together, prepare them to perform with an artist such as Nancy Wilson or Paul Stanley, and it's a pretty amazing process, because everybody, the first day, everybody's kind of reserved and closed in, and then once everybody gets comfortable, it gets to be really, really fun. And I think that it's an experience that I mean, it's an invaluable experience. I love it. I mean, I made friends with these people, and to be able to help them, live a dream or accomplish a mission, and it's just it's really fulfilling. It's really cool to be able to give back and let these people, be rock stars. They're the
Mm,
rock stars. They're the real rock stars. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just a conduit to help them achieve that, and they become the real rock stars. And a lot of them you become friends with, and you keep in touch with, and they show up at your shows, and you hang out with them there, and they get to see what you do in the capacity you do it in, and you bring them backstage, you treat them like rock stars, and hang out with them and stuff like that. It's just a really cool process to get to interact and give back.
yeah. Okay. No,
Absolutely.
it's great to see. It's so awesome. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Another thing, part of my own curiosity. Inevitably, I'll see a guitarist and he'll do solos and this and that. For some reason, it seems to me rare that when they're working their way along the fretboard, the very
Mhm.
top ones are just like ignored. It's like most guitars hang out in the middle of the neck, and then when they go into the solo, they go down. You know, why? And maybe I'm just being an idiot about this, but why do guitarists not spend a lot of time at the top of the neck?
I mean, where the register gets high, where the notes are higher.
Well, no, actually, the
Oh,
opposite. Where
down
they're
to that. Oh,
yeah,
down by the headstock.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I tend to like navigate. I try to take advantage of all the real estate. Maybe it's more impressive, the higher you go, or I don't know. I mean, sometimes you can compose something
that
that's
could be.
so
That could be.
you can compose something that's so intricate, and you're playing, a melody, but you can go up to the top of the neck, the high E string, go to the highest note, bend it, and just play it as fast as you can, and let it wail, and it has more impact than playing, like a classical piece down low that's more intricate.
And then, as a very experienced guitar player, I'm curious when you have downtime like this, what do you work on?
I have a practice routine that I do. It's very similar to my warm up routine, and I like to try to stretch out and do things that are not part of my repertoire, and try to expand my vocabulary, if you will. Um, I read out of I have a Berkeley book that I like to read out of. I try to stay up on my reading and writing. I try to reach out to other artists. I try to work with other artists that aspiring artists, young guitarists that are trying to navigate their way, through the industry, what's left of it. um, it's a real interesting landscape. But yeah, I try to have the guitar in my hands every day, um, minimally an hour, if not more. Usually an hour is the goal, but hour usually ends up being, you get lost in your instrument, and an hour turns into two turns into three, and then your wife, your kids are knocking on the door, and go, remember us? And
All
it's like,
right.
of course I do.
No, but I think that's also awesome that you can still get lost in it, so easily.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you always have to stay in the student mind. I mean, to get better. I mean, I love the instrument. I love everything about it. I'm still learning, and I don't believe that I know a fraction of what it has to offer still. I mean, so it's an adventure. It's an excellent lifelong um, journey, if you will.
Okay, cool. And remind me again, what is your guitar of choice?
I'm a big fan of Gibson Les Pauls, standard, the custom, any of
Hmm.
those, the juniors. I'm a big fan of Gibson custom shop guitars, Les Pauls. It just feels right. I mean, I have other guitars as well, but I just keep coming back to that same guitar. It's part of me.
Yeah, and other guitarists I've spoken to who love Gibsons talk about they have a warmer sound than you can find in a lot of other guitars. Would you say
Yeah,
that's
it's
true?
it definitely has a personality. It's an identifiable sound. It definitely. I just, to me, I just like the way it feels. I mean, all my favorite guitarists growing up, you saw them playing a Les Paul, Ace Frehley, Randy Rhoads, Neil Schon. I mean, I even get a kick out of seeing pictures of Jimi Hendrix or Eddie Van Halen playing a Les Paul. They're not as identifiable with those styles of guitars, but I love capturing those pictures, and it's I mean, Paul Kossoff, Michael Bloomfield. I mean, it just
Oh
goes on.
yeah.
List goes on. There's so many iconic players that have played the guitar, and it just to me it just defines excellence in an instrument.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, those are all my questions. Is there anything we didn't cover that's been on your mind that you want to discuss?
No, I just really hope that everybody comes through this whole COVID coronavirus scare. I hope everybody stays healthy, everybody stays occupied, and everyone just is safe. And we'll all get through this together. And I truly believe that once we come out of this sequestering, I think it's going to be a huge rejoice of music and food and traveling, and we're going to get back to what we do as Americans and what we do as human beings. We're gonna be so cooped up with cabin fever. We're not going to want to stay in the house. We're going to want to get out and go to concerts and go see live music and go out to eat and hang out at amusement parks and get together and do what we do best. I wish everybody the best, and I hope everybody makes it through it safe and healthy.
That's great. Cool. Well, thanks for making the time, and hopefully we will see you on the road soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Keep up the good work, man. You're doing a great job. I follow you too. So
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's very nice.
absolutely. Very enjoyable.